Welcome to a special lockdown edition of Beyond the Glass. It's been over a month now since the PSA World Tour was suspended. The coronavirus has changed our lives dramatically in this last period of time. But we're here to bring you the latest news and top stories from the best players in the world and to keep you up to date with what's happening with the PSA World Tour. Joining me today, we have MC extraordinaire, former PSA World Tour player, Jenny Duncalf, all the way from Australia. G'day, Jenny.
G'day, Joey. Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to this. Tonight, it is tonight over here, morning time where you are. But yeah, one of my more exciting evenings of quarantine so far, and we get to talk squash for a good amount of time. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, Jenny, I know it's nearly 1 o'clock for you, so if you bear with us and we can have a good chat, and then you can get on. Is it the Van Rouge?
Tends to be, yes. I'd say more often than not.
So how are you keeping? Are you keeping well? I mean, I know you posted a few videos. You're going to be out and about with Rachel, improvising, doing a few squash situations. Are you also exercising, getting on your bikes and enjoying some of the fresh air?
Yeah, I've actually kind of surprised myself. Well, to be honest, the first couple of weeks, I'm not sure I did any exercise. I just got back from the Black Ball Open and I'm not sure what I was doing, but I definitely wasn't exercising. But since then, I've got into a pretty good routine. I think I'm training harder than I have done in quite some time. We do kind of like everyone, a bit of an indoor circuit each morning, and then in the afternoon try and get out on the bikes at around 4 or 5 o'clock, or go for a walk. Or I've actually been running twice a week, which is horrendous. I'm such a bad runner. I've only done 6 runs of those, 6 or 7. But yeah, struggling through, trying to keep active and trying not to duck into the fridge too often, which is also happening far too much.
But the thing is, Jen, the more you exercise, the more you can eat.
That's true, yeah. But I find the more I exercise, I'm better at not eating. I'm all or nothing, Joey, all or nothing.
Yeah, I'm all or everything. That's just the way I roll.
How's your quarantine going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to be living. I've got a lot of space, you know, in the countryside. We've got a lot of space and open air, which is fantastic. And my kind of temple, which is my garage converted into a gym, which has been a real godsend for me. So we're homeschooling our little Jonah at the moment as well. My wife's on a very strict homeschooling schedule. I'm the designated PE teacher. Sadly, I had to stop doing the PE once I tore my quad kicking a football like David Beckham into the hedge.
Was it like David Beckham though?
It was meant to be. It was meant to be, but it was. I didn't warm up, which of course, being a professional athlete of 12 years, you just to not warm up, and it was just ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. So I collapsed to the floor with my leg kind of howling slightly, as it was quite painful, with my son looking bemused. And so I was already in the kind of doghouse with my wife, who doesn't have very much sensitivity to injuries or anything like that. So. Yeah, it's been a challenge, you know, the family dynamic in that respect, but it's really good, joking aside, to actually be spending time with my family. We're traveling a lot, as you know, and to actually be at home and spend this time with my son and my wife and my folks as well is really important, and so they're making the most of that, really. Well, Jen, even though the squash courts and all the gyms are closed, that hasn't detracted from the squash community improvising wherever there's a wall or what they can do with a squash racket. We've got a few of the best clips on social media. No court, no problem.
Tonight, wait tonight, better off. I'm gonna find my way tonight, wait tonight. Won't you talk to me? I wanna heal your sorrows. We'll make a new tomorrow. One night to find the answer. What makes this heart beat faster?
Well, Jen, I mean that's pretty impressive, really, with everything that's going on. I did like the behind the shot that you played there. Also, I love the shorts in that clip. Very, very cool.
Well, thank you. Yes, managed to sneak in a little video there. It's so good to see. I mean, how creative people have been. We saw the guy there on the beach mapping his own squash court out. It's been a bit of a refreshing change, actually. People have had to literally think outside the box. A few tight boxes in there, a few suspect techniques perhaps going on, but it's fantastic to see everyone's being really imaginative, and so important to still keep the hand-to-eye coordination going in these times.
I mean, in terms of promotion for squash in itself, with everything that's gone on in the past with the Olympics and stuff, I mean, I think it's very, very cool that these people are rocking up all over the world. As you said, the spaces are slightly restricted, so maybe the techniques could be affected quite drastically for some of these people. But I was just a little bit disappointed with the chap that seemed to be ghosting, obviously probably close to Whitby or Cleethorpes. It didn't look too sunny there, but he wasn't in his underpants, the particular attire for beach ghosting, but at least he was out there doing it.
Yeah, you'd be having none of that, would you, Joey? Just in your little tidy whities, I'm sure.
Well, it's fantastic to see everyone honing their skills and keeping in touch with the game. But from the professional point of view, we really want to see when the PSA World Tour is going to be back in motion and back competing. And we've got COO of PSA, Lee Beachill, in to answer a few questions to see where we're at with the PSA World Tour. Hi, Lee. Great that you've joined us here. And last time I saw you was obviously when we signed off at Canary Wharf with the suspension of the tour. How are things going for you?
I think probably similar to how they're going for everyone else. Very, very strange times. Obviously, we're having to get used to a completely different way of working. We're trying to do everything that we possibly can throughout this period to prepare for our sort of next season, whenever that's going to start. We are looking at the news constantly, like everyone is, trying to take as much advice as we possibly can. But at the moment, it's it's very strange, and we're having to adapt as much as we possibly can.
And Lee, obviously, the tour came to an abrupt halt, and certain tournaments couldn't be played. So the likes of British Open, Grasshopper Cup. What goes on behind the scenes in sort of dealing with their ongoing contracts and when they might be played again or just cancelled for a year, and what happens working with those events?
It's been very, very sort of different really for each event, Jenny. I mean, we're working very closely with England Squash. Elguna was obviously one of the tournaments which was postponed, so we've been working very closely with Amir Manzi. The World Tour Finals was another event which was obviously postponed. So we've put a provisional schedule in place that will see the season start as normal in September, with the addition of the major events which have been postponed. That is the British Open, the World Tour Finals, and Elguna. Now, obviously, at this moment in time, we don't know if that's too optimistic, whether it's a realistic aim or not, but we're just trying to prepare for what probably we would consider to be the best case scenario, and that is us being able to restart the season in some capacity. We're trying to be as nimble and as flexible as we possibly can. The promoters of the postponed events have been absolutely fantastic. They've been quick to reiterate that those events are postponed, they're not cancelled. And depending on when we get the green light to responsibly resume playing in some capacity, we most certainly will be doing it.
And in terms of the players who obviously aren't competing at the moment, what are PSA doing to kind of look after them? I know the PSA Foundation do fantastic stuff. This is obviously quite a crisis for the players, but what are PSA to provide support for the players?
Like you said, I think the foundation has sort of come into its own a little bit over the last few weeks. They've been pumping out some great content. They've been coming up with some fantastic ideas to keep players engaged, to give players ideas to help them. We are looking as PSA to try and put some type of hardship fund in place with the limited resources that we've got. As you both well know, squash is a small community, but it's a exceptionally close community and a very well connected community. And there's a lot of people out there who want to help. And I guess it's a case of trying to put a system or a mechanism in place that delivers that help to the people that really need it.
Lee, sorry, just with what you touched upon about, obviously with it being a world sport and different guidelines with different countries letting in certain countries and not, and everything moving forward, would there be a possible change of tournaments? So some of the tournaments to be played possibly in other countries that might have been, for instance, say just to kind of go into the World Tour finals. Would that, if things were freeing up in England, would you be looking to possibly put that on in England?
We're looking at all sorts of different scenarios. Let's say none of them are ideal. We're trying to sort of work from the best case scenario and work backwards from that, and trying to come up with all different scenarios which will allow our athletes to get playing again. I think first and foremost, our main priority is to get our athletes back on the squash court, back competing and back earning as quickly as we possibly can. I think one of the sort of unique natures of our sport, which is going to enable us to do that, is the fact that we can be, we can be quick, we can play anywhere, we can, as long as we can erect a court, we can have a competition. I think one of the key elements that is going to affect any of that is going to be international travel. And I think, once international travel starts to operate again and open up, and depending on which countries are operating to a certain level, we're going to have to look at all different options with regards to getting competition off the ground. To see all the events that we've got scheduled to take place, I think is an extreme long shot. But we're hopeful, we're optimistic, and we'll just keep adapting to what the guidelines are out there.
Well, Lee, thanks very much for all the info and the update. We'll keep checking in with you, obviously, to keep everyone in tune with what's going on. And best of luck with everything, and keep plugging away, and really looking forward to hopefully getting back on the road and getting squash out to the masses again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Good luck, and we will be back as soon as we possibly can.
Well, interesting to hear all those bits, and it is an impossible situation at the moment for PSA, but they're obviously trying to get a plan in motion, Jen.
Absolutely, yeah, and now's the time, as you say, there's things to be done. Of course, being prepared. It's great to hear that. Obviously, I mean, the government doesn't even have answers, so how we can expect sporting governing bodies to have answers as to when seasons will restart? It's impossible, basically. But to be prepared is the best we can do at the moment. And as Lee said, the nature of our sport, it is easy to kind of play it, but the hardest thing is the lack of international travel, which is going to take a long time. But if there is a scenario like perhaps going to the States and getting all the players there somehow for a period of time, we do just have a court that you can erect anywhere.
It's interesting when you look at the original tour that was started, back in the 70s, and how it's progressed and it went through. They did play in pockets of the world for periods of time, so there was a Sunshine Tour, and it was called the Sunshine Tour in Africa, and it was played in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and a couple of and Kenya and places like that, and they were kind of played one or the other. I remember with the Hong Kong Open, there would be another tournament in Singapore and possibly in Malaysia, and then so the fact that it's so easy to travel up until what's happened now, we were kind of flying across different time zones, which is difficult for the players, and it's hard. So if they're able to pocket these events back in certain areas of the world for a shorter period of time, then I think it's a good solution anyway. I think it's quite a positive solution. It's not just like this will do and we have to do it. I do feel that moving forward, it's a clever way of doing the tour, because the travelling is exhausting for the players, and if they're able to get those timetables and things in place for the future, I think it'll be more efficient anyway.
Even outside of coronavirus, players have always kind of asked for a bit of a kinder calendar in terms of travel, like you say, like they used to have. We've always wanted, you know, the tour in America, then the next season, the next kind of spring, summer in Europe. You know, it makes sense. It's just not always hard, not always easy to do that, obviously.
Well, it's bang on timing, really, Jen, when you're talking about the players and how they're going to respond to the calendar or any type of calendar that the PSA are going to try and activate. Coming in today, we've got a terrific guest, Sarah Jane Perry, England #1, who is going to join us. So great to have her here, SJ, known as the Gladiator. Hello, SJ. Look, are you doing some gardening or sunbathing in your conservatory?
Hi, Joey. Neither, unfortunately. The conservatory is my gym, so I've been doing some stuff this morning.
Nice and warm in there, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Good sweat on.
Good to see you, SJ. You sat on a bike by any chance, or am I just guessing that?
No, I'm sat in a plyo box with a cat as well that wants some attention.
Oh.
This is Fleur.
Fleur, well, nice to have you, Fleur, and SJ. Good to see you. So you're spending a fair bit of time in that conservatory / gym at the moment, I take it. Oh, the tails.
Yeah, she wants to be in on this. Yeah, no, spending quite a lot of time in here, especially the last couple of days when the weather's gone downhill a bit, so can't do too much outside. So plenty in here. I've got a bike and some weights and stuff to chuck around, so it's plenty to do still.
SJ, just obviously being the president of the PSA now, and seeing the impact in during your career with the merging of the rightful merging of the WSA and the PSA, which has only just taken the women's game to strength. Roger Federer was talking on social media, interestingly, about how it's time now for the tennis tours for the men and women to be merging and stuff. Have you taken note of that? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did see Roger's tweet, and I didn't read too many of the comments and things, but it made me sort of have a little think, because you kind of think of the ACP and the WTA, they are kind of very established tours in their own right, and it's with the tennis, I think they've been very much kind of one or the other, and there's not been really any talk of them merging. So that suggestion actually kind of set my mind going and have a little think. And I think from a PSA point of view, it's only been positive from my experience anyway, and so I think it would be beneficial. From that would be something that obviously has happened in squash that would help the tennis. Whether it would kind of add to the overall product of the tennis would be interesting, because I think there's a lot of big personalities and big experienced business professionals on both of those things that may all want to work for them if it was to happen.
Just interesting to hear your thoughts, SJ, back onto the squash merge. You're quite an established and experienced player these days. We obviously merged back in 2015. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on how it has sort of changed since 2015. Like, do you feel it was an instantaneous kind of some improvement on the women's tour? Or has it gradually got better to where we are now in terms of kind of scheduling on the glass court, you know, prime time, viewing at tournaments of the women compared to the men? Is it improved, or was it just straight off the bat it was so much better?
I think there was kind of a few improvements that were instantaneous, but then I think a lot of them have then been kind of gradually changed over the next 5 years, which, you know, no one expected everything to happen straight away. I think the players obviously had some concerns from both sides. I think the men were there was quite a few of the men that were kind of extremely worried that the women joining the men into one association was going to mean that we were also going to suddenly steal loads of their prize money, and I think they'll find that their tour
Naming
is
any
also
names?
no, not going to name any names at all. But
Okay.
you know, their tour since the merger, the men's tour is also increasing. It's 67%, which is a huge amount as well, and they're earning more than ever before. So I don't think most of the men have any kind of issue with that now, and they'll I would imagine most of them see it as positive. I think some of the women were slightly worried that that even though it was going to be a joint association, that the women were kind of going to be a kind of second thought after, and always be after the men. I think that's obviously still taken a few years, like you said, with the scheduling on the glass court and things like that, and pushing for that, because it is difficult to change people's mindset of this is how it's always been, and all of a sudden you're trying to tell people actually you're trying to reassure them that the women's matches do sell tickets and things like that, and it's kind of a chicken and egg situation, in that if you put them in the better slots where people can actually attend, they will sell them, but it takes a bit of a leap of faith to do that. And I think we've seen more and more of the promoters really pushing that, and I think now it's reasonably, it's not far off being kind of the even split. I'm waiting for one of the tournaments to put the women's final after the men's, because we have had a few this year that have definitely been better for the women than the men's. So
it was the Malaysian Open. The only tournament that used to do it year in, year out was the Malaysian Open. Only ever tournament that had the women's final after the men's final. That was obviously because of Nicole David.
Yeah, I'd like some of the tournaments to start. I think it'd be really good for one of them just to come and say that's what we're going to do this year. I think we've had most of the women's finals have been pretty special this year. I think only been a couple that have been kind of not really closely contested. So that I think that's the sort of next step, to kind of break that traditional barrier of having the men's final last always.
And just God, I'm doing it again, Jerry. Go on.
I was just reiterating what SJ said about with the women's. It's not just the finals, the semis as well, and quarterfinals where the matches start to get really, really tough with the women. And you should be very, very proud of the way the women's tour's going, SJ, particularly being the president and representing. From a TV perspective, it's fantastic, and I agree with you. There needs to be chopping and changing. I mean, this is again a good time to have a look at everything and refresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other question then would be: would you like to see it a bit more like tennis, where they have they sort of release the schedule at the end of the previous day? So if you have got those specific matches that you really want to put in the prime time or whatever, say like someone's had an upset and it's changed the draw a bit, the kind of flexibility to do that, or do you just keep it as it's, it is generally it's a rigid schedule at the moment? Further as it goes into the tournament, the more possible that becomes with the rest times and things. But I think that would be quite interesting as well. I'm
a massive fan of that, and I think that we should be looking at that moving forward after things settle down with what's happening at the moment. SJ, good luck with your training. I hope that things obviously are going to open up and you can get hitting balls again on a squash court and not against the greenhouse or the conservatory. I'm sure if this goes on for long enough, you will start doing. But best of luck with everything. Really appreciate your time today, and thanks for chatting to myself and Jenny.
Thanks for having me, and stay safe, and everyone at home stay safe as well, and see everyone soon.
Well, Jen, you mentioned Nicole David, one of the legends of the game. She retired a year ago alongside Laura Massara and yourself. So, I mean, how have you found that now, a year into a different career and a different life, really, for you?
Wow, yeah, almost a year. It's actually gone really quickly. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed it. Before retiring, I was a little bit emotional about it all. And, as you know, it's something you do your whole life, especially for you and me. We've grown up around sort of squash families, and I was always a little bit scared of stopping. But once I did, I feel like this is going to sound depressing, actually, but I think I've realised if I'm completely honest with myself, I don't think I was enjoying my squash as much as I definitely should have been. And I've only sort of realised that since retiring. I'm not missing. I miss sort of competing and having good matches, but I wasn't really having that many competitive and good matches and playing the way that I wanted to play. I don't miss the sort of going to the club each day and just hoping that you're not going to feel your hip or having to do your prehab, your rehab. I wasn't really enjoying it. And since retiring, it's kind of just drop you just sort of naturally drop your shoulders a bit. I don't know if you found that you know, you can have that piece of cake with your coffee that you wouldn't usually do, or if you did, you'd beat yourself up about it a little bit, or trying different foods. I mean, huh?
I always had cake with my coffee and ice cream. And
oh, you would, yeah.
I still do it now. That's probably why I've bulked up slightly. Well, another one of your contemporaries from the junior days, another footballer as well, Daryl Selby, played a huge amount of football growing up. Loved his team sports. He's been really, really active on social media. He's also in the same boat in terms of possible retirement, which he's been staving off for the last period. But really excited to hear from Daryl about his trick shot challenges and also where he's at the moment with what he feels about his career when things start up again with the PSA World Tour.
Please say you saw that. That's live. This is live. It's not bad attempts, that first go. Fourth time. Lucky. Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Let's have a just to prove it. Where are we? Oh. There she is, the little squashy ball. Rolls Royce, baby, Rolls Royce.
Well, Daryl, just obviously you're always very active on social media. I was saying in the intro with your shot of the months that have been going over the PSA World Tour for the last few years and stuff. So you've got your young nippers at home and obviously mucking around and improvising. I mean, you've come up with some pretty cool challenges that have taken really well, haven't they, around the squash community?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started, we weren't sure how long we were going to be locked in our houses. So obviously always like to keep some form of like skill games going, especially at home with like young ones, trying to teach them like the patience of learning a skill, whether it's getting a ball in a cup or whether it's doing keepy ups with the side of the racket, whatever it might be. It's like for them, I try and do it with them around as well rather than doing it in the evening, which is not always easy, but it's good, like trying to teach them like the patience and the way you like learn as well. So it's sort of, I mean, I'm sort of trying to class it as a PE lesson, but most of the time it's just after spending so long doing like board games and stuff, it's nice to do something a little bit more active. It's tough, like the way the world is at the moment. Like you want to wish. You know, I love spending time at home with the kids because you don't get to do it as much when you're traveling. Like we all know, when you travel a lot and you're away from home, you get that feeling that you want to be home. And then when you're there and you're forced to be there for like a long period of time, you then get the urge the opposite way to actually go out and explore again and want to travel and just have a bit of your own space. So it's the tough bit's been like the balancing act of trying to do stuff, trying to do constructive things, but also like homeschooling kids is really tough, especially the ages I've got. Like reception class is really difficult, and 7, and then the 2-year-old basically she just runs around and ruins everything. So it's just a whole juggling act, really. So yeah, it is what it is, and everyone's learning to adapt. And yeah, we are in our house as well.
In a funny way, Daz, it could be a bit of practice for you because, you know, I don't know if you've officially said anything, but you often allude to kind of tournaments being your last tournament, etc. You're not going to be playing squash forever, so there's going to come a time, perhaps not too far away, that you are going to be at home a lot more. So how's this coronavirus? I mean, a big curveball thrown at you in terms of your plans on potential retirement and your squash at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's just massively thrown it all up in the air, to be honest. Like, I was probably planning on, I don't know whether I still haven't fully convinced that I want to stop. The problem is, every time I think, oh yeah, I play one tournament, don't feel great, not in great shape, don't do that well, and then think, okay, yeah, this is really it. And then I sort of stitch myself up and then, play well again. And like Kerry Wolf played really well, obviously beat Joel, who's top 10 player. I know it's still best of 3, but, to be able to play that level of squash for nearly an hour with the amount of training that I actually do, which is very little, is nice. But it gives you that little bit of motivation then to then think, oh, I'm still in here. But then, I don't know, I don't feel 37, if that makes sense. Like, when I run around the squash court, I still feel like I'm 27. I don't feel fit, like as fit as any of the, top guys aerobically, but still, for that period of time playing, whether it's half an hour, 45 minutes, I still feel able to compete with them. And if I'm playing well enough, my squash-wise, I can definitely cause some damage. So I don't know, this coronavirus lockdown thing, I've been running a bit. I'm probably a little bit overweight, but then it's just hard to do home workouts and anything. When you're not playing squash at all, going out for a 5k run every other day is not really, that. Not burning that many calories. I'm probably still eating as much as I was before, and then just sitting down for like massive parts of the day. Hey, you, JB, you got a squat rack there behind you, haven't you? You've been working out. You like keeping in shape?
I'm going to start taking it around with me. I'm going to start following what The Rock does and just basically taking a mobile gym around the world when we start traveling again at some point. So
I'll start bench pressing PJ in the commentary booth.
Well, that wouldn't be too challenging, to be honest.
He's probably a bit big. Maybe Johnny Williams. Get Johnny in there. He's a bit lighter, isn't he?
Yeah, a bit more of a challenge with him talking at me. But well, Daryl, just another thing another project you've got in the pipeline on the go is you're linking up with Nick Matthew to do, I think, a podcast. Is it?
Yeah, so similar to this, really, like a little video cast. I mean, I want to call it a game show, but he won't let me. So it's apparently more of a chat show interview. We've got a few guests on, similar to what you're doing here, filming the first one tomorrow. But yeah, I think we've decided to call it Bobby and the Wolf, and got a few little graphics going on, and yeah, it should be fun. I've obviously done podcasts in the past with Mr. Pilley. And I hope to still do a few more, podcast type things with him. But this is like more of a video thing, and yeah, just something we thought we'd try and come up with during while everyone's locked down and wanting as much squash content as we can. So great that you guys are doing, PSA are doing this one, and yeah, just trying to get as much content out there for all the squash lovers to keep sane, I guess, whilst this is going on, and even going forward, it's just good to have more content for people to be able to absorb. So should be fun.
Yeah, it should be good. Make sure you challenge him. I'm pleased that you managed to get your name before his. I'd imagine originally you wanted to probably call it the Wolf and Bobby, but you got Bobby in, so well done with that one. I'm not sure. He a lot of the ones he came up with involved a lot of squash terminology, and I managed to steer him away from that onto the names. So yeah, no, it's very nice for him to let me go first. Not that it means anything. Best of luck with it. Look forward to listening and watching it as well, Daryl. Thanks a lot for today. Really appreciate your time.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Nice talking to you.
Well, good to see Daryl's enjoying the fun side of coming up with these trick shots and stuff. Jenny's obviously gets inspired with having three kids under the age of 7. I mean, homeschooling wise, I know what it's like. It's a real challenge with having a son at 5 years of age, but having 3.
He's such a good guy, Daryl, and it's definitely going to be a shame when he does eventually hang up his rackets. Of course, he loves the trick shots, and we mentioned his football, but he's pretty much talented at every single sport he tries. He's a bit of a jack of all trades, and such a showman, obviously all his shots of the month, and a real fighter, always a brilliant teammate to have in the England team. And yeah, it's going to be a real shame when he eventually does stop, but it's great that he's very active, as we know, on social media, doing starting up this new podcast. So I'm sure even when he does stop playing, we're still going to see a lot of him.
Yeah, I agree, Jenny. You know, Daryl's done an amazing, had an amazing career. He's done amazing things for England squash. Hopefully he'll still stay involved once he does finally hang up his rackets. But I hope to see a bit more from him when the PSA World Tour starts up again. Well, I really appreciate everyone joining us today, particularly Jenny, co-hosting with me. Jen, you take care back in Oz, and we'll be getting back on it very, very shortly with another episode of Beyond the Glass. Everyone, I hope you've enjoyed it. Keep safe, stay well, and we'll be back soon.